Well, good morning, everybody. As we get started today, I want to show you the last 72 hours of total accumulated snowfall and also give you a quick apology. So last night, my family, we got delayed here at Chicago O'Hare for about an extra hour and a half, almost 2 hours because of the snow that came out of this system that came through the northern plains and did dump quite a bit in parts of Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, parts of northern Illinois, Michigan yesterday. And the delayed flight was to Arizona. So I'm coming out here for a series of events next week in California and in the Southwest. And so I decided to bring the family along. So to pass the time while we sat here waiting for things to clear and to get the de-icing going, I thought you might like this. I did fire up the barometer on my phone. It's very interesting to see this because this is actual pressure measured by the phone. Kind of neat to watch this large spike right here. This is just as we were taking off. And then we had the normal depressurization within the cabin and went down to about 824 millibars. So, you could think about that as a 15 to 20% reduction from normal atmospheric pressure. And then when we landed in Tucson, because of higher elevation, the pressure's here. So at least my kids were entertained by their nerd of a dad, kind of explaining how all of this works. But anyways, getting into the hotel last night, carrying out the luggage, I was huffing and puffing, going, why in the world am I so out of breath? Well, that's the answer. All right, sorry, I thought I'd share a little bit of my life with you here. But that snow, just as a reminder, we got a whole lot more coming into this area, also New England, and the snowfall totals that we're expecting in California, especially in the Sierra Nevada, are just going to be kind of chart toppers. I mean, there's potential in the Sierra Nevada for up to 100 inches of snow out of this. Now, it is important to take a look at the last 3 days of precipitation. Of course, what came out of Texas, right in the Red River Valley of the South, some tough storms a couple days ago, some of these producing some hail down here, but very heavy rains. But this is the beginning. You see it over here in the west. This is the beginning of the first in a series of very strong onshore flow events coming into California. I want to give you a little bit of a sense of the timing of these. So one of my favorite websites here. In fact, I need to link this one for you so you've got it in the description at YouTube today. But what you're going to watch here is we're looking essentially at the moisture, the change in sea level pressure, the total. It's basically a measure of energy coming into the west with these next few atmospheric river events. So you can just see this and kind of follow the moisture coming into this area. So if you notice, the unit's kilograms per meter per second. And what this unit means is that this is a measure of dynamic viscosity. It is a Pascal per second. It's a really unique value, but it tells us basically the strength of these atmospheric river events. So we have the one that's today and lasts into tomorrow. They're going to watch as we get out there into next week, past the 13th, 14th, that time frame. That's when the second big one is expected to come on shore. So what we've got here is essentially within the next 5 days, two very, very strong onshore flow events slamming into the west coast of the United States. So we look at all of that in aggregate, and we get something like this. So I try to distill it all down here. Starting in the west, we've got snow elevations that could get down between 4,000 and 6,000 feet. I shouldn't say down. That's quite high compared to where they have been. There is the potential for 2 to 8 inches of rain, and some of the forecast models are putting down up to 100 inches of snow at certain peaks in the Sierra Nevada. We will also see very strong winds. I've labeled some other areas of expected snowfall amounts also in the Pacific Northwest and in the Central Rockies, but the Rocky Mountains are going to actually, because of this flow, give us a very expanded rain shadow in this area. And we're going to have to wait until we get fully into week 2 before we start to realize better precipitation here for parts of the southern plains, actually the whole of the western plains. On the northern side of it, we actually have a blizzard warning already out right now for parts of North Dakota, 3 to 10 inches of snow where possible. And one storm system that has been, it's been a tough one to forecast, but we got better information on, is next Monday, Tuesday, what could be coming up the East Coast. Between all of that, severe storms coming out of coming out of Oklahoma in the Red River Valley toward the lower Mississippi River Valley tomorrow on Saturday, and again down here in the southeast on Sunday. So if you need a quick synopsis and got to go, stop right here. This is what we're watching just for the next 7 days. All right, winds today. This is kind of telling us the setup on the story. I got one low that's leaving Lake Erie. We still have this major attempt at recovering some warmth, but also some moisture in the central United States. But here's the very, very strong winds that are right now going on in the west. And this is what's going to be driving some of the all hazards that you see here from NOAA. So we've got flood watches, winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories, high wind advisories, high wind warnings. Then you get over here into the Rockies and the same mixture. And then you get into northern plains. This is all blizzard warning, winter weather advisory, winter storm watch. And remember, this is just for the leading event coming through right now, the eastern Great Lakes toward New England. We're going to see again the push early next week that's going to hit this particular area. So I don't know. Let's just start in the west and get some numbers down on this. I'm going to show you the European model operational run this morning, looking at total accumulated precipitation for those two events, the two big ones we talked about. So remember, a lot of this is coming in the next 36 hours. Here's the big event that we're talking about next Monday, Tuesday. And if we just kind of take it all the way out here to a 10-day forecast, the liquid equivalent of all of this, we do have places throughout the mountains that are looking at 9 to 12 inches of liquid equivalent in the Central Valley. There'll be places that pick up over 2 inches. The coastal parts of California here, probably in the 6 to 7 inch range. And remember, a lot of this in the interior is going to be snow. But also notice up the I-5 corridor, we got some very heavy precipitation coming into that region. Since I mentioned the snow, let's go ahead and have a look at it here. I'm just going to add it up and show you some of these in totals here. So notice that in the Upper Colorado Basin, 14 to 26 inches of snow. North of the Snake River Valley, again, a couple of feet of snow. Round Yellowstone into this area, 15 to 20 inches of snow. Through the Sierra Nevada, we have the potential for picking up 2 feet of snow. But again, the Cascades. Into the Sierra Nevada, though, just remember that 30 to 100 inches of snow are possible out of this. Now, the flooding threat is huge, and just thinking about what we've seen so far in reservoir recovery, well, if you look at Lake Oroville at its lowest back at the end of November at about 658 feet, it has since come up to 839 feet. So you add another 20 feet to this, and we're looking at a 200-foot recovery in Lake Oroville, which means that there's probably going to be some flooding issues here. I'm sure they're going to let the water out the spillway once it's necessary to do so here. So we'll have to watch out for that carefully. And as I mentioned, notice the winds. This is just a forecast of the winds going all the way out there to Sunday midday. We could have gusts here that easily top the 40 to 50 mile an hour range, hence the blizzard warnings. And then you get into the Intermountain West, and some of these winds could possibly even top 60 to 70 miles an hour. So very, very windy with this system as it comes through too. On the southern side, just want to point out again where we're watching for the severe weather. Here's what we're looking at on Saturday coming out of Oklahoma through Arkansas. And then you're going to see in the forecast I'll show you in a few moments how the risk starts to move farther to the south, basically stretching from Louisiana to parts of Georgia. So let's queue up the high-res European model, and I want you to watch, this is the high-res NAM. I think I needed to get more sleep last night. The high-res NAM, and what I want you to be watching are 3 different systems here, all right? One, there'll be a second one coming out in this area, and then, of course, what's coming into California. So as we just play this through the middle of the day today, getting into this afternoon, we've watched California take the brunt of the first of these, at least 2, but probably 3 additional atmospheric river events. And this is what it's going to look like this evening, still in the San Joaquin Valley and the Central Valley here. Snow's coming toward this part of Colorado. This is the system to the north that's got the blizzard warning on it, right in through here, and we're watching snows going through New England. Now, if we play through the overnight hours on Friday and get us into early Saturday morning, we now see we're adding more snow out of Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, into the Red River Valley of the North, spreading again into Minnesota. And I understand a lot of folks in here are just ready to be done with this, but we still have more moisture coming, and it's coming in the form of snow. So one system leaves. The central system dominates the pattern for Saturday. We're going to watch that slide through. There's the low here, finally going through the Red River Valley. It's going to be pushing snow throughout all of the Great Lakes states as we get into Sunday. Now remember, to the south of this, we're watching for the strong to severe storms. So this will be Sunday. The front sags down through here, initiating that severe weather. So that's what we're going to just have to continue to keep a close eye on. And again, the next one's coming into California at this point as well. So let's try to distill this down a few different ways. This map shows the probability through the next 72 hours of getting at least 4 inches of snow. This is just through 6 a.m. on Monday morning. And here's the probability of getting at least 8 inches. There it is. So we do have very heavy snows coming through this corridor here on that system we just described. Now to take a look at it in the actual European model, let's just add up. There we go. This is through Monday. We'll pause it right out here. And you notice that there's a corridor through here, again, looking at that 5 to 8 inch range, locally higher amounts falling on an area in some places where we still have 2 feet of snow on the ground. Now, if we look at the multi-model analysis on the timing of the next couple of systems, let's get through what we've already seen. This goes through again Friday into Saturday. Here we are Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, and evening. Now, the two waves, the one that came into California and the one that was to the north that's going to initiate the blizzard, are actually going to be working together to initiate this storm system that goes up the East Coast on Monday. So this is now Monday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Remember, we spring forward this weekend as well. So what you've got right here on Monday, the GFS and the European both producing this coastal low. The European is the most aggressive on the snowfall, getting it closer to the I-95 corridor. Snowfall rates are going to be nearly impossible to know until the event begins. And what I mean by that is the temperature profile of this system suggests that a 10-to-1 ratio is likely too aggressive. But we're going to look at the snowfall totals anyway. While that happens on the East Coast and high pressure builds in behind it, this is now the 14th when the next strong atmospheric river event comes into California. And it's in both models. It actually stretches up into Oregon, Washington, and Idaho as well. And that's the next event coming through there Monday, Tuesday. So here we are. Let's go into the middle of next week. And the models are attempting, I'm keeping an eye most closely on the European here, to develop a system in the central United States. Now, the GFS, which is typically more progressive, has this already going over Ontario. The European slower, deeper wave, back farther to the west, that's all that's going on here, brings this system right over the upper Midwest. And it's a day later than the GFS does. And it is much snowier in this area. So that gets us out there just a full week. We do see model agreement on this, but things still need to be settled on when and where that's going to be. Now, coming back to the storm system Monday, Tuesday, I'd like to show you these two waves. So here's the one to the south. Here's the one to the north. These are the clustering of the European ensemble low pressure centers. And what we see here is that this comes together. It almost looks like one of those Miller B systems dipping down into the Carolinas before making the turn and coming up the East Coast. Now, there is still considerable spread on where this low could be, and that's what's ultimately going to determine where that rain-snow line will be on the northern side. But we're going to use this and take the average as probably our most logical forecast here, and that would suggest that we do bring snows pretty far to the south and east toward the coastal areas of New England. So I'll just show you what the European is going to do with that. So we add up total snowfall. There's the event. Now, I want you to look at this and simply look at where the snow is being put down by the model. You see huge numbers here. There's 20 to 25 inches of snow right now, but I've told you the 10-to-1 ratio that I'm using here will not be valid. Also, we don't know how quickly this is going to change over given the temperature profile. So please stay aware of that as we're watching this system in New England. All right, that's just the next 5 days. If we get beyond that and just say bigger picture, what does the snow look like? Next 10 days, this is the corridor over the heaviest snow, in addition to the west, of course. Probability of getting at least 6 inches of snow is shown here. Let's look at the rainfall side of this. And I want to start off on the drier side. Remember how I told you earlier that it looks as though we're going to have this expanded rain shadow area? This is the probability over the next 10 days of seeing less than a half of an inch of liquid out of this. So we can now see the areas throughout the plains that, at least in the near term, are going to miss out on this. I have better news in the week 2. But the wettest locations, this is the probability of getting more than an inch. It's down here in the Mid-South, the Tennessee Valley, and the Southeast. That's where we see the heaviest rains. Again, this is snow, and most of this is snow except for in the valleys. All right. Okay, so day 10. What was interesting about the recent model trends is they don't want to back away from keeping this strong zonal southerly displaced jet stream pattern through at least the 25th of March. So you see the broad troughing that's happening here? That broad troughing is partly due to some high latitude blocking, but mostly due to just an extended and energetic jet stream that's coming across the Pacific Ocean. And what happens when we see that pattern is wherever those strong jet stream level winds are going to be, the models want to pick that area up as having, the highest probability of staying wet. So you can kind of see it's from California through the Four Corners, eastern Texas into the south. This is also what the GFS suggests. But the GFS is attempting to deliver a bit farther to the south trajectory and allow systems to curl up, delivering more moisture to the central plains and southern plains into next week. Into the following week. This is the week 2 forecast. But with the jet dipping so far to the south, we are also going to be running the risk of extended frost risk farther to the south. So just in the next 7 days, everywhere that you see in gray, the National Digital Forecast Database is recording a low temperature that is below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're looking at the frost potential there. And because of that southern extension of the jet, the newest forecast for the 5-day sliding window of temperature anomalies I like to show you now brings in a reinforcing shot of colder air. See it anchoring right in through here, going all the way here to about the 25th of the month. Now, with this is going to come more snow. And this is really starting to increase in a major way the spring flooding threat across a broad section here of the United States. It's already in the West, but now we're adding it into the central United States as well. And a lot of that's going to be coming from melting snow. So it appears that we've still got at least 2.5-3 more weeks of full-on winter conditions in the northern plains of the United States because of the way this pattern's setting up. Okay, new long-range data came out last night from the European. The bias over the next 15 days of keeping this cooler, the model hangs on to it. We're going to watch the MJO transition. We're going to watch high latitude blocking to see if by early April we break away from this cooler pattern here. This is mostly a snow feedback issue in the Intermountain West, but there is cooler risk across the West as a result. What I am getting very concerned about is that from the southern and central plains through the Ohio, Mid-South, Tennessee Valley, down here into the southeast, the risk of early and often severe weather with this pattern, it's there. So I'm going to be watching out for that carefully. Finally, last couple things. The models next week are attempting to bring in really good rains into parts of southern growing areas in Argentina. Buenos Aires, parts of southern Santa Fe, into Cordoba and south. Still hot and dry in the northern Argentinian growing areas and in Rio Grande do Sul. But after that safrinha crop is in, the models are now predicting, an extra 100 millimeters of rainfall. That's at least a doubling of what they normally get. So very heavy rains in Mato Grosso. Finally, in today's report, we do talk about the new article that came out from the Climate Prediction Center, kind of confirming what we'd been talking about for a few weeks about the end of La Nina. It was interesting. The Argentinian government picked up the story and tweeted it out in Spanish. But when you translate the tweet, it said, "The girl is gone." So they're talking here about La Nina leaving. I also want to point out that the most aggressive forecasts are coming from the Australians on how quickly El Nino could return. They're suggesting by May. And what's important about this, and this is what I detail in the report, is that when you look historically about correlating El Nino conditions with May to August precipitation on the left and temperature on the right, this is what you tend to get. And we need to continue to have a discussion about this. Thanks for giving me extra time today to get this out to you and extra time listening to me talk about it. I also want to thank my colleague Andrew Pritchett for stepping in for me last night. He is an outstanding meteorologist and an even better friend, so I appreciate that. Okay, we'll talk soon. Thanks.